Welcome to the Be Battle Ready podcast, weekly interview edition. Today, I have on with me Chris Prefontaine. Chris is the best-selling author of Real Estate on Your Own Terms, a real estate investor with over 27 years experience in the field. And Chris is a founder of Smart Real Estate Coach and host of the Smart Real Estate podcast. So let me turn you over to Chris so he can do some more justice to you for your introduction, and we'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Just a 10,000-foot view and dive into whatever you want, right? So we run a family company here where we buy and sell real estate on terms. So that means no banks. That means no signing personally. It means no credit. It means none of your own cash. We do that throughout New England. And then we coach others, we call them associates, students around the country, where we actually teach them hands-on in the trenches. And while we're doing that, of course, they're getting coaching and we're revenue sharing. So we have a vested interest in helping them get that deal to the finish, which is a huge gap in the industry right now. So that's what we do. We do that all around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a little background in real estate and real estate investing and understanding that it's very important to, have somebody with skin in the game. So
yeah, for sure.
We talked about what was the most value you can provide to the audience, and you're talking about leadership. So let's kind of give your ideas on leadership and all, how that works.
Here's why I said that. As soon as you said the word, I said, let's do that, because without us even talking about what that means, and so I appreciate being open-ended with you. Someone said something scary when we started to scale and we started to go to kind of like these quarterly groups just for scaling and leadership and value and culture. And it was simply the statement that your business will never outgrow you and your leadership abilities. And that's a scary thought if you think about it. So you're trying to lead a team, trying to scale your business, it will never grow past you. You've got to be constantly growing as a leader and then cultivating the other leaders in your. So that's from the start. And then to go ahead and scale it takes a lot more than, just some weekly meeting or just weekly leadership. You're talking about establishing values in the company as a leader. Then you're talking about having a meeting flow that actually coincides with those values, or nothing happens. And so everything ties nice and cohesively with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a part of, led my own teams and been a part of teams. And, when I think the meeting is like a microcosm of the rest of the culture, right? Like I've, a couple of meetings I can think of were very boring, very, no one's really connecting. It was just a check in the box for the week, and it wasn't productive versus the meetings that, in the past that I've led where we actually got stuff done. So,
yeah. And here's a thought on that. You made me think of, so it's okay to lead, but think about this. Instead of the kind of the top down, right? The old school top down, here's what we're doing. It is in a room. Let's establish the values together. So this is what we're going to live with. You guys decided. We didn't, we did. And then every decision to hire, fire, take on a student has to fit with the 6 values that we said we're going to live by. And then when we sit in the meetings, all the decisions are based on those. So there's no guesswork, and there's very little, if any, conflict. And one of our values, you'll appreciate it, is blunt and to the point, no gray area. So, I mean, we just go at it and go at it aggressively.
Yeah. I think, what was that from a while back? Just, passionate discourse, right? That was something I learned about years ago, and it takes a certain amount of trust inside that organization to actually have that,
no question.
All sides. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like when you're hiring someone, on that note, if you're hiring someone and you're going by your values and you ask them, well, would you be offended if, we were blunt? And some people are offended. They take it personally. So it's not a good fit for your culture if that's the case.
Absolutely. You cannot have somebody that does not align. I mean, we in the past would actually hire our students, eventually graduate our students that owned a CrossFit gym into actually staff members. And it was the best fit. And it's kind of hard for other businesses to do that, but a lot of times you can see that. But tell me a little bit more about your experiences, like where you came from, what you've gone through as far as, how'd you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you an overview, and then we can always go back. So 91, now I'm dating myself probably compared to some of you guys. 91, I started building single family homes on spot lots, subdivisions that had like these onesie, twosie lots. We did them on terms though. So we would build the entire house. We would secure the lot and nobody would get paid until the house closed, whatever it was, 120 days, 6 months. I did that to about 95 or so, then bought a Realty Executives franchise. I know you had family that were a broker, you said, your mom was a Realty Executives franchise. I sold that in 2000 to a Coldwell Banker and then started coaching people throughout the United States and Canada after 2000, and then on investments. And that was still building commercial. It was condominium conversions. There's a lot of stuff. And then, of course, no surprise to you and everybody else listening, you had the great debacle of '08. And so that major adjustment caused some headache for a lot of people, certainly us. But that caused us to re-engineer everything we're doing right now. And that is buying on terms and not using banks and not jeopardizing personal assets and things like that. So that was the big change, but it was all sparked from '08.
Okay. Awesome. And you've developed a coaching program along with this. And tell me a little bit about that program and, how you help individuals.
Yeah. So we have a program that it's kind of like literally A through Z. It tells them what we use for vendors, for suppliers, how do we get our leads, then obviously how to process everything from beginning to end on. And I just think I'll say this, I know it's not all real estate people watching your show, and there might be some, and there's just an enormous gap for what you and I said earlier, actually getting deals done. Buy a course and then it sits on a shelf, or buy a course and I really can't go do a deal because they're not giving you A through Z. We give A through Z. We could cut this course up, exaggeration, into $5,000 modules. There's 60 videos in this thing. It's under $1,000. It's crazy. But that gets them a foundation, and then it'll see, okay, who wants to apply actually now to actually go do deals with us? So it's kind of like a pre-qualifying, if you will, and a foundational training. And then once they get through that, they all have to go through that. And then once they get through that, they can apply to one of the coaching, consulting, or associate levels where we do deals together. So it's a very streamlined system.
Awesome. So, it's great you mentioned that, there's a lot in the online space, especially in coaching consulting, where, the world's promised to them, right? This little widget, this tool, whatever it is, it's going to get you to where you want to go. When actually they're not really being authentic. It's awesome that you say that, because knowing, more than just owning, in my first business, owning real estate as an investment, as part of the business, I've educated myself on real estate investing and understood that, like, once you get the knowledge, that's great, but going from the knowledge to actually getting the deal, there's a good amount of work there. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody yesterday about this. Like, he's closing on his house, he's doing all this other stuff, and he's like, well, I want to go do investing. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds easy, but actually acquiring the deal, right, is the actual, going from that point is really the hard part. So
I was talking in Dallas last week now, actually almost a week ago. And the example I gave with exactly what you said was when it took us to learn how to surf, but they show you first on the surfboard on the beach, right? So it's pretty easy. Oh, this is easy. Then you go out and I come back with bloody knees. Well, people go to a seminar, they get the same thing. Oh, it's easy. Nothing will happen. No curveballs. Nothing's going to go wrong. And then they go out and they get bloody.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's one easy way is going to wholesalers, right? But a lot of times you're one of 100,000 people on a list, and it's like, good luck with that, right?
It's not only that. I agree with that. But in addition to that, on the wholesale front, here's two things, my comments. And I look at, I have a lot of friends that do wholesaling, and they're on my podcast, so nothing against it. But A, checks, usually, relative to what we do. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And two, B, it's do it again and again and again, right?
Yeah.
There's no residual. So on our deals, we actually create 3 paydays every single deal. So there's cash today when we fill it, there's cash going every single month, and then there's cash on the back end. Well, that's pretty cool because they average around $75,000 per deal, all 3 paydays. So now you're talking significant deals when students start doing 1, 2 of these a month,
Yeah, absolutely. So we went off a little tangent about it, the actual ins and outs of real estate investing, but it's all good for everybody else. So real quick, let's talk a little bit more about leadership, since we're focused on that today. Like where was the most impactful, something that impacted you the most as far as growing as a leader?
I think the forum we belong to, if this is what you mean, was by far the most effective. So I knew that was an area I needed to work in order to scale. So we seeked out, asked people around. We found this forum called Elite, and it's not real estate. It's all business owners, and they range from, you got to be doing 7 figures to get in. Their intent is to grow you from 7 to 8 and 9. And so there's people in there doing $20-30 million a year in business. So you do get different perspectives, and you do get a different level of leadership, training and nudging up to the next level. That was the most important thing we did. Individual. Then I started bringing the team to the place so they can learn too.
Absolutely. It's always a good thing to get your team involved about what you're learning, right?
If it's not, it's just us coming back all excited going, oh, okay, I got a new idea to do this now.
And it's like, come back to your wife with a new idea. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, go back to the seminar. He'll forget that in a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. What about experience-wise? Like, what part of your career has really impacted you and made you grow? Besides like coaching, consult, like some of the external, like, because I've found the hardest, the times that you grow the most is through the adversity.
There's no question. So the two biggest ones were the 2008 debacle I told you about. I mean, I'm talking, 23 properties having to go closure and working out shorts. I mean, it was a nightmare. And then the other one was like in 93 or 4 when we lost a big subdivision. We just got too into it over our head. But look back at those. This is interesting. Both of those time periods was when I did not have a mentor attached to the hip. And I didn't realize it until like literally a couple of years ago. I thought back saying, wow, the two biggest hits we took, I wasn't attached to a group or a mentor or a mastermind. Well, how crazy is that? So don't ever get too kind of, I'll say, cocky. Or think any because things change. Just make sure success leaves clues. Just be with someone or an organization or a person that can help you get through that stuff.
Absolutely. Like if you look back and when we the first thing we did when we actually took on the risk of a lease and all that stuff, and we grew the gym from the garage, is jump into a mentoring group. And actually it's a lot of fun because you get to see somebody else doing what you're doing and being, okay, great, that's awesome, right? I like how they're doing. I'm going to pick up that, and for me, that's how versus getting one-on-one coaching, right?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what we got out of this group. That's cool that you did that, and it's cool you said that, because you get into this micro mode where you think you're the only one having that issue, and then like you said, you get around 20 other, in your case, gym owners, and you go, oh, normal. Now, how'd you guys get through that?
Yeah. So what is your you talked a little bit about you're not really a hierarchical type of leader that kind of, command and control, right? You tell me a little bit more about your leadership style.
Well, it's more of a group because it's my kids and a great team now, right? So we have all different ages. I think we go from 24 to I'm 53. So there's a wide range in there of different ages. So I'm more about them getting in a group and them brainstorming, and then, like we said, when we came up with the values, well, same thing with every decision. How are we going to run this event? How are we going to launch this product? Shoot these videos? All of that is a group decision. I mean, 90-something% of it is definitely not coming from the top. That's kind of won't go anywhere. Plus, I don't have all the ideas, certainly.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's when you were saying that earlier, I always think that there's a perception, external, like false perception, that leaders and what we have to be successful is this, superhero figure where we have to have it all figured out. Right. And it's this false, like, wherever it comes from, it's like, it's false, right? Because if you look at, most leaders and most people that are successful, it's not how it actually happens,
Well, isn't that similar? I mean, when most of us are grown up, right, it's the same thing. When you're 5 or 6 or 7, your parents are 100 perfect, and you realize, okay, life happens, and they're just going through the same things everyone else goes through. So same thing in the company setting. You got to bop and weave together so they know you're humble, they know you're open and authentic and want to grow as a team.
So real quick, with what's been the biggest victory inside, as a leader?
The scaling for bringing out the coaching side of things, because the real estate I've been doing so long, right? So it's just, you can keep doing that and it creates cool wealth. But the coaching thing, bringing that from into the 7 figures, and then now 50% a year growth the last 3 years. It's not because of me, it's because of the team that we've got in the leadership thing you and I talked about by far. Because all the years, I think you did businesses, you know this, you can muscle your way to like $1 million. Most businesses can. I know I'm not watering it down, but most businesses can by doing a little more of this, a little more email, a little more mail, a little whatever, a little more whatever. To get over $1 million, it's a whole different ballgame. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that.
The hustle. Hustle, muscle, all that stuff. And it just burns out usually. Did you go through a phase of that where it took you a while to figure that out, or you were?
I don't know what it was. I was just used to grinding it. And then when I got in this other group with Elite and realizing that all the business owners all did the exact same thing, and here's how you break through it, 2 years ago, whatever it was, that was a major, major issue. Because since then we've now almost tripled, and that's kind of a big deal.
You're the, a lot of times, concept I learned a long time ago was that you're the sticking point, or the, holding back all the growth, really, because you're trying to have everything filtered through you as a leader.
It is. Hey, I can do that. I think everybody can who does the business. You tend to manage it, or you got to do it yourself, and it's just not going to happen. You got to let go, and then you got to get some help, like we talked about, both of us.
Absolutely. Well, cool. So you talked about a meeting, right? I mean, how important the meeting is, and the meeting structure and meeting flow. Like, give us an example of what that looks like for you. Like, I
got off on a tangent on that. We should talk about that. Okay, so you get the year mission, right? In that case, it's a 4-year mission left, but you get the mission, and then we meet trimesters. So at the end of 4 months, we meet and we go over our strengths, weaknesses, areas that need improvement, market things that could affect us, and then we set our tasks that are going to keep us on track every trimester. And then you leave there. Everybody has marching orders, and everybody has what we call a big 3. So it's 3 things that we're each going to work for the next trimester. But again, we did them all together. And so then we meet on a weekly one-on-one basis. How you doing on your big 3? How can I help? Because it's something you did together. It's not like, hey, go do this. It's how yours coming. Okay, how can we help each other? So those big 3 lead to the next trimester, and then we just reset it and go again. And that's getting us from our mission.
Nice. Sounds really familiar. So
most people either run on that Elite group. Or I know a lot of guys. One of my accountability partners, I have a weekly accountability partner, and he's in a totally different business, and he runs on the system Traction, that book Traction. So a lot of our stuff is, but they just use different words for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what kind of the frame. I help businesses create a framework doing the same thing, right? So and actually, when I learned a system like that, like, it was for a holiday campaign for the gym, and I went into business just with very, very little experience, like pushed into business. Really, I was not done with college, had 2 jobs, and that was it. And then just had to figure it out. And once I saw that, I was like, I'm going to keep doing this all year round, because it was a way to stack and sequence your marketing, your customer service, all the other campaigns inside your business into one actual initiative. And it was immensely tough. Yeah, it's amazing. So cool. What was the most challenging as far as interpersonal being a leader? Because that's a big part of it. Interpersonal communication, interpersonal relationships. Like, I know that through my growth in the past, that I've done really well and faced one-on-one relationships that are tough, but I also haven't in certain areas. So can you tell me about some experiences around that
one of the tougher ones? I think it was in April of 18, so back almost a year now, almost exactly a year. We had to let go of a bookkeeper after 8 years, but she had started with me one-on-one, just the 2 of us. Then it was myself and my son, and then it grew from that, doing no business, for my way out of the debacle, to doing $2 or $3 million. Well, we kind of outgrew her, and so not only did we outgrow her, but we maxed her out in every way, and she didn't fit our new culture, our new values that we established. So that was a toughie to let her go. That was probably the toughest one, challenging wise.
Get it. And on that, since let's segue into this, and we both have this in common where, we are part of family business. I don't think I've not run a business if it wasn't my mom and my sister to now my wife, my girlfriend, fiance transitioned to my wife, now into my wife again, into a new business. So, let's talk about your experiences, some challenges, some victories, some, what can we learn from you about how to work with family?
We flow pretty well with that because it didn't happen by you go to this role, you go to this role. It happened organically, meaning when we started, I needed help with my business. I needed help with buyer. Nick started doing that. My son just kind of did it. And then as we started growing, my son-in-law Zach kind of took over more of my role and started going and see the sellers and being the buyer on the, Kayla, my daughter, came in and started having a natural ability to manage. So the general manager thing just popped in. So it's almost like we don't want each other's roles, but we could do it if we type thing. And that's unique because people go, oh, that's cool. How did you do it? How'd you put it together? How'd you engineer it? And we really did. It happened that way. And then we do everything on incentive basis. So nobody came in and said, okay, great. I got this big salary because I'm family and you're family. So you can appreciate this. When deals get done, when deals don't, we don't. So I think that's important too.
Yeah. And, the one thing you said inside of that is the organic way of thing to happening, right? I think a lot of people in business, they want to like engineer and do all this other, or just have this predictable element and not go by feel or allow opportunities to come up. I mean, but that's the nature of business. That's the nature of, growth is seizing opportunities that just apply, appear. Right.
And if not, I think you get in this box, right? You get in, like, you don't let things in. You don't let the natural thing, like you said it better, energy wise. I like what you said, because that's kind of like I like to do it. And that gets a little fluffy for people. But, like we had Dr. Joe Vitale was our keynote speaker at our event here. So that's the kind of stuff I like, kind of like you alluded to, this energy and flow.
Yeah. And, I want to segue into that. And since we did kind of mention when we were kind of getting connected about personal development, like what are some ways that you put yourself, what I call, in a place of power so that you can be aware and ready for that and prepared for, what the challenges of running a business and being responsible for people? Like, what are your
you mean things like personal development, right?
Personal habits, personal development, routines that you do, or,
Gotcha.
how do you keep yourself sharp, on a daily basis?
Yep. So a bunch of things in no particular order. Mornings are either going to be, no matter what, hit the gym and then at the office, or a meditation or a yoga and then at the office. So it's one of those three things every single morning pretty much. And then I used to do emails every single morning, and it wasn't too long ago. And now at home, I'm double or triple my reading by not doing that. I only have 2 days a week where I'll touch email. So those things are important. My gym thing's super, super important, not just for physical health, but for mental. And I've dramatically increased the reading by things like Audibles and Blinkist. So if I'm on a bike, I'll read the hard copy book still, or if I'm at home. But if I'm on a treadmill or elliptical, I might be listening to an Audibles. Well, that stuff, I heard a stat not too long ago at that group I was at that's 10%, roughly 10% of the population buys most of the books and 50% owns none. And that's a lot of people not touching a book. But on the other side, the people that read, as you know, you can be in the top 2, 3, 4, 5% of whatever you do if you do that. And so everybody listening could actually double, triple, quadruple their reading by reading and doing an Audible or a list. So just some thoughts.
Absolutely. And, one thing I want to kind of dig into is that, there's a lot of people out there that read. I mean, I've gone through phases of this where I've consumed a lot of the content. What are ways that you take it and implement that content, or, solidify, that learning that you did and actually make it a part of what you're actually doing? Like, do you have
that's a really cool question. No, very cool question. So on the book side, I'll, if I'm, sitting there reading somewhere, I'll either make the note or make the sticky note on the page so that when I'm done that book, when I go back before I file it away and get all either the to-dos or the ideas out of there. So an I will be for an idea and an A will be for an action item, and just act on it right then before you go to the next book. Or else you're right, you kind of just maybe 10, 20% or whatever sunk in. if I'm on a machine at the gym and that comes up on an audible, I'll literally just hit the record button and leave myself a memo. And when I get back to the office, I act on it right then. It's kind of like if you're at a seminar, right? We go to mastermind meetings and more prone to say, okay, here's my notes going on in my journal. And I get to the room, I'm going to track on every single one of them, whether I'm delegating it or doing it or putting it in a sign-on task or later, like I'm acting on it. I think that's super important. Back to what you said about just kind of doing it, going through the motions.
Absolutely. Like it's, I'm a part of other groups, right? Men's groups and masterminds in different areas. And, one of the things in this one group is I see a lot of people consuming, right? And not taking action upon it,
Yeah.
And it's almost to a detriment. I actually started working with a hired new ad guy, and he's like, look, he mentioned this. He's like, I see this a lot with a lot of coaches and stuff. Like they consume a lot, but it just gets them all confused. So
yeah, I agree. Yep. Gotta act.
And since we're talking a lot about leadership and now we're talking about personal development, like what do you send your staff and that to your team to invest themselves into masterminds, into courses, into continuing education? Tell us about that.
Here's how we run that. So they participate in that quarterly one now. That I went twice about a year and a half ago, vetted it out. Now we go together on almost all of them, or some of us are going, or all of us are going to the quarterlies. And then we have, as part of our yearly exercise, like you said, you're familiar with the offsites. We set up our own specialized training. So it could be my son Nick likes to go to some Mike Dooley events and do that thing, and Zach likes Bob Proctor and some other things he works on. Our staff might be dive into something particular for like an app or something they're using to get better at it for the team. So we call that specialized training. And they all pick one for a trimester. Awesome.
Very cool. So, what other, coming to the end of this, like what other, anything else you want to share, or any lessons you want to, knowledge you want to give us, lessons, anything to take away from in regards to leadership, growing and scaling your company and developing your team?
Yeah, I say this about any business, and that is it doesn't matter where you're going with it. If you've set some high, you set the bar high for goals, there's someone that's done it. Don't be afraid to spend money on that someone, whether it be you or someone. Don't be afraid to spend money on, because I can tell you, I can pick each mastermind group, for example. I can pick each mentor, and I can attribute $250,000 or more, no question, every single time to that person, that event, that mastermind, if you pick it right. So don't be afraid to do that. You'll get it back. So I won't even say tenfold. You'll get it back way more than that. That's my biggest advice I can tell you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So, awesome. Well, I think it's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I hope everybody enjoyed it as well. And can you share where, if someone wants to get a hold of your programs, get in contact with you, any of the things that you want to share and how they can get connected with you?
Sure. Maybe a couple of things, and then I'll actually give you, audience, if you want, a book. And when I say free, I mean no shipping. You're not going to put your credit in. It's not one of those free books, but here's $8 in shipping, I'll give you two things. One is go to smartrealestatecoach.com, because everything is there. You can contact me. You can watch the free webinar if you want to listen to me for another hour. The book, we have a best-selling book that you mentioned, and they can just go to free, FREESREC. It stands for Smart Real Estate Coach. So freesrecbook.com.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll go ahead and put that stuff in the comments, and then go from there. So
sounds great. I appreciate you having me, and great job, great conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, that wraps this week's episode of the Be Rattle Ready podcast, brought to you by Battle Ready Business. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur or current business owner and you'd like to take your business to the next level, go over to battlereadybusiness.com to apply for a complimentary one-on-one Battle Ready strategy session. During this session, we'll take a deep dive look into where you're at, where you want to go, and come up with the fastest path for you to build a multi-six-figure Battle Ready business. So go over to battlereadybusiness.com to apply for that strategy session, and I look forward to supporting you.